Welcome to the City Council meeting of Tuesday, March 19th, 2019. All council members are present except the mayor and Councilmember Zorns, who are absent and excused. Boy Scout Troop 61 will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Meeting agenda approval. Anyone want to pull anything from consent or no? Okay. Review of public engagement opportunities. March Against Hunger Food Drive, March 1st through the 31st. Food and dry good bins are located at City Hall, Police, Municipal Court, Downtown Fire Station 42, and the Bothell Operations Center. Collections will be delivered to the Maltby Food Bank. National Diabetes Alert Day, Tuesday, March 26th. The Bothell Fire Department will provide free glucose and blood pressure checks at City Hall, room 127, from 10 a.m. to 2, no appointment necessary. AARP Tax Help, Fridays until April 12th at the Bothell Library from 10 to 3:30 p.m. No age or income limits. Visit the Bothell Library website for more information. And a shred event on Saturday, April 20th from 10 to 1 p.m. at City Hall. Stop by City Hall to shred up to 3 paper bags or 2 boxes of confidential material. Visit our website for more information. Okay, special presentations. We are lucky to have King County District 1 update from Councilmember Dembowski.
Good evening, council members and Deputy Mayor Adjourn. Thank you for the opportunity to join you and give you a brief update on what we are been working on at King County and to have any dialogue or questions that you would like to have. You know, I wanted to update you on our budget, our 2019-2020 budget. The budget for the county is $11.7 billion with a B. It's a big outfit. Now that includes your sewer and solid waste utilities and metro transit, which is about $1 billion. So there's some big functions there. But some highlights for the north end. On affordable housing, which I know is one of your 10 priority areas that Davina had mentioned to me. For the first time ever, we put, $100 million of hotel, motel, or lodging tax into transit-oriented development for workforce housing. So that's within a quarter mile of a transit line. And for the first time ever, we did a carve-out. I put in the budget a carve-out for North King County cities to make sure that we had a shot of some of these dollars and they weren't all going to some of our, larger colleagues of $8 million. So as Bothell looks for opportunities for affordable housing investment in the community, please know that we have those dollars available. They're not spoken for except for North King County projects, and that's $8 million in supporting dollars. We put $1.3 million in to implement the Regional Affordable Housing Task Force recommendations. You all, I think, are familiar with the 2-year process or so where we brought a task force together to address affordable housing kind of on a regional basis, and a number of recommendations there that came out of that process. We put some dollars in to staff that. One of the areas that I allocated some resources again specifically for the north end was about $150,000 to support, if north end cities want to do it, a regional collaborative kind of body to get together and work as a group of cities in the north end, I'll say from Shoreline out to Woodinville, those are the north end cities that I represent, to say, hey, you've got your strategies locally. How do they fit in with the overall regional strategies for affordable housing? What can you be doing up here in the north end to the extent you need some help building that cooperation up and working with your north end cities? We put some dollars in there, and I've been talking to Shoreline and Lake Forest Park and Kenmore and Woodinville about it, and I wanted to make sure it was on your radar as well. One of the things I'm most proud of was, and really had a great experience with, was working with your police chief, Carol Cummings. I mean, you have a rock star in Carroll. Now, she came from the county family, so I'm a little biased, but Chief Cummings brought me up a couple years ago now to a meeting over at the police station with all the North End police chiefs and city managers, and talked about expanding a radar navigator program as an alternative to incarceration for folks experiencing challenges, either chemical dependency or behavioral health issues in the community where there is a problem there, and the first responder is called, often the police. But you know that probably the right solution isn't a trip to the jail. At least that's a very expensive solution and often not successful. So the Radar Navigator program connects folks in need using your first responders to resources in this community and in the system. And we were able to secure, through a great collaboration of North End cities from Shoreline, Lake Forest Park, Kenmore, Bothell, and Kirkland, a $780,000 dedicated allocation from the Mental Illness and Drug Dependency Fund, which is 1/10 of a penny sales tax. And that would not have happened but for the leadership of Chief Cummings. And it was just I'm excited to see what becomes of that. And I know she's working to take it even broader than the North End and take it to the State Academy. But it's a pretty exciting thing, and her leadership was really a privilege to participate in with. On the environment, there's an effort in Lake Sammamish to support the kokanee salmon, which are indigenous to that, kind of a unique species. It doesn't spawn out to the ocean. Kokanee also are in the Sammamish and North Lake Washington area, and we put language in the budget to expand some county support to make sure that we weren't just doing the Lake Sammamish, but that we came down into the river and to Lake Washington as well. We've sent some money to the North Shore Senior Center, some Get Active, Stay Active money, and community grants, as well as some capital support from the Vet Seniors and Human Services Levy. The big two items coming up this year, well, there's three that'll appear on the ballot. In November, there'll be King County charter amendments. We have a charter review commission that's looking at the constitution of the county government, which is old now, and we'll recommend updates and fine-tuning that. I don't expect to see any major changes. They could recommend changing the number of county council members or changing how we are elected or fundamental changes in government, but I don't know that I see that, but I wanted to call that to your attention because that Charter Review Commission is doing its work, and will make recommendations to the County Council, and we'll put those on the ballot in November. There are two levies. The first one in August is the Parks Levy, and I've been working with Councilmember McNeil in particular on this issue and others on recreational opportunities. But we're going to renew our Parks Levy, or at least ask the voters to do that. It's a 6-year Parks Levy. And a big part of that here is in Bothell is our regional trails, right? We've got at the Wayne land the opportunity to connect the Burke-Gilman with the Sammamish and the Tolt. And the executive's initial proposal did not have any money in there to do that. I was able to convince them to add $2 million of a line item. So that's come over, and I expect that will stay in there. We'll obviously have some planning to do, work to do with the city, but we'll now have some money to carry the connection out in the next 6 years. I'm also interested in adding a piece to the levy to expand access and opportunities for folks with disabilities. Particularly motivating to me and inspiring to me are the Wranglers here in Bothell that are run out of the North Shore Senior Center. I know you're all familiar with them. And, we have this incredible regional trail system and outdoor opportunities and open space. But I think sometimes those of us who are able-bodied forget that folks with disabilities maybe need a little help to be able to get out and enjoy that. And there are some great programs around the county that do that, including Outdoors for All, that build special bicycles or equipment on the ski slopes, and programs like the Wranglers that make sure folks are getting connected to that. And I think it's an appropriate thing in our parks levy to include some support for those organizations. So I've been working on that. In the North End, one thing I was not able to convince the executive to put in, but we continue to work on it, is some capital support money for swimming pools. And from Shoreline to Woodinville, there is, including at the North Shore School District here, great interest in bringing on swimming pool capacity. And they're expensive. They're tough for an individual jurisdiction to do. And so I want to see if we couldn't add a penny for pools, I call it. It would generate over the 6 years about $44 million to not operate pools. The county was in that business a long time, and we don't want to be in it. We got out of it. But for capital grants to repair existing pools or to help school districts, cities, park and rec districts construct new pools. I don't know that we'll get there. I'm going to work with Councilmember McNeil, who serves on the Regional Policy Committee. We'll have an amendment, but we're talking to the City of Seattle folks and suburban city folks to see if there is an interest there. Shoreline and Lake Forest Park are interested. Shoreline is building a new pool and going to ask their voters for a substantial bond. So this would be a regional supportive grant to help do that. A couple other things. The other and final levy that I talked about will be the EMS levy. King County is the best place, Councilmember Agnew knows this, in the world to have a heart attack if you want to live. Our survival rates are up close to 50%, I think. Higher than that, 60-some%. And it's because of our Medic One program. You can hear Councilmember Agnew, if you haven't, tell the story of those guys coming back and women as well from Vietnam and the lessons they learned in the field and what they brought here to medicine with Dr. Kopus and others out of Harborview to bring that philosophy of care on a cardiac basis to folks here in civilian life. And it's had a tremendous success. It's funded with a levy on your property taxes, and that'll be up in November. Voters love it. I mean, we don't like taxes, but they like this one because it is about life safety. And there's been a very good technical working group that has got a recommendation on the amount of the rate to come forward, and I think we'll have a smooth landing there. This is the 50th anniversary of Medic One in King County. It was started in 1969. Councilmember Agnew was in the second class, I think. And we're going to maybe plan a little special work around that. And then finally, the Solid Waste Comprehensive Plan was approved by the Regional Policy Committee. We appreciate your partnership with the county and recycling and taking care of your solid waste. It goes mostly out to Cedar Hills landfill, and we have to have a comprehensive plan to guide that. Cedar Hills landfill is going to fill up at some point, maybe in about 20 years, and so the current plan calls to continue to direct most of our solid waste to Cedar Hills landfill, building an additional cell, but then its life is going to be done, and we're going to have some kind of new technology or other disposal method, which is either exporting the waste to landfills out of the county or some kind of incineration or digestion of the material. So those are options we're looking at. The county council is getting out of the courthouse and tomorrow going out to the Cedar River Valley to have a meeting in the community there, and they're not too happy about the landfill, and you can see why. So we want to listen to them and take their input. So that is just a brief update on some of the things that we've been working on. My approach as a council member representing Bothell is to be your partner. You are the local government. You are responsible for delivering municipal services, but I think the county, from human services to outdoor parks, recreation, open space, to some public safety items, can be your partner from a funding basis, and I hope that my approach has been supportive and collaborative and never top-down or too heavy, and I've really enjoyed the opportunity to work with each and every one of you, and Councilman Olson will get to go on a project at some point. So thank you for the opportunity to join you tonight. Be happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much.
And I'm sorry for the cold. I don't know if you can tell, I got a bit of a head cold.
Thank you for coming, and we can't express enough how much we appreciate the support for the Navigator program. It's been a game changer for us, and we know that you went to bat for that, so thanks. Does anyone else want to comment? Councilmember McAuliffe?
Thank you, and Rod, thank you so much, because your support for the city of Bothell and for King County really coming to be a partner is very, very important. The Navigator program, I can't tell you how much we appreciate your support of that. Also, I guess I'm a little bit concerned, so I'll share this, in the solid waste and recycling, because yes, the landfills are filling up, and please zero in on what the little recyclers do, because they actually recycle, so it doesn't go to the landfill. So they're critically important in this conversation. So I just want to bring that forward. And also, we all want a swimming pool. We know that. So whatever I can do to help. But also, I also want to comment on the fact that the city of Bothell's taxes went up 14%, higher than anybody, and that was because of the improvement of property values. They went up, and also the levies. So please be cautious of what we actually ask them to do.
Thank you very much, and that is a good reminder. One thing, if I might, on the solid waste comp plan, we have a stated goal of 70% recycling, and we're not getting there. And this plan, frankly, doesn't make the kind of investments that we need to make to get there. So the small recyclers, that's an area of interest, and I will look into that. One good thing, I think, in this plan is we are going to build a new Northeast transfer station to replace Houghton down at Kirkland. Kirkland has been a good partner and a willing partner in expressing a desire to help us site the facility there, which is, these are always tough to site. But that is important for ratepayers in the northeast part of the county to have a facility that will take the garbage and recycling that's not too far away. In other words, not down to Factoria or not over to Shoreline, because the further the haulers have to go, the more they want the ratepayers to pay. So we will be making that investment. It's expensive. They're north of $100 million to build. I gulp at that. In fact, when I first came on the council 6 years ago, the volumes of the tonnage, we said, we don't need a new one. Let's take that off the table. And so it was off the table for a while, which saved some rates. But the region has grown, and garbage is actually a pretty good indicator of economic activity, we've learned, and the volumes are up. So I appreciate you pointing that out, and agree with you on the tax rates as well.
Anyone else? Councilmember Agnew? Oh, sorry, he beat you.
Well, I too would like to thank you for your support and your leadership with the city of Bothell. It's very much appreciated. And as for the Medic 1 levy, I don't think there's an increase in this levy coming up, to be honest with you. I was the chair of one of the subcommittees, so they looked at that. They looked at it real hard. They didn't want to increase staffing or anything along those lines, so they're just going to have increments that pick up the cost of living, changes it for the contracts for the most part. Thanks for the plug on Medic 1. Appreciate it.
Councilmember McNeil?
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember, thank you for your support of the city of Bothell and our community. Support of affordable housing, big issue across the region. Locally here at home, it's important to us as a council. Your support of, the disabilities, the Wranglers program. I had the opportunity to be part of that program last year. It's a very special program. So thank you for your support on that. The EMS levy, all great things. The parks levy, I think, is one of the big ones that I think would be important for maybe you to come back and speak to this council on what the benefits of that park levy are going to be to us, because there is voter fatigue out there, but I think it's important for folks to understand what is going to be in that levy for us. Yeah. As far as pools and other things, just having an understanding and having us to be able to have a conversation on what's important about trails and things like that to us locally here. Another thing that is near and dear to us is our senior center. And I hope that we can continue to work together on the senior center and make sure that we have a viable senior center for our seniors here locally throughout our community as well as other communities surrounding us. So again, thank you for your leadership and your support of the Bothell community.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. And that senior center, as you all know, is held by the North Shore Park and Rec Service Area, and I serve on the board there. And obviously, we've got a challenge. We had the money. The voters passed a bond to build it, but really not the ongoing dollars to maintain it, at least for major capital items. And so we're working on that, and I will do what I can from the county perspective to support. What I understand is the #2 most active use senior center in the entire country. I think your city manager maybe had that stat. It was an eye-opener. On the parks levy, one more thing, if I might. There's a 6-year levy. I took a look at the last 6 years, and the north cities, at least that comprise my district and the portions there, put in about, I talked to the assessor's office, about $33 million over the 6 years of property taxes. And as you all know, there's a small pass-through that comes back to the cities based on population and assessed value, and then there's projects. Well, because all of the North End's incorporated, there was not a lot of return on that $33 million. It is a regional parks and trail levy, but into the North End communities, there was not a lot brought back. And so I began scrutinizing the new 6-year levy to see how much would our taxpayers be putting in and what would they be getting back? And I'll have to tell you, I got concerned because there was not much return on the investment. So we advocated for at least the 2 million trail connector. Another piece, and that's in the executive's proposal, another piece I'm advocating for is about $2.5 million for what's called the Green Loop, which is really in the city of Kirkland, but connects from Juanita up to Wayne and over to Juanita Woodlands and that part, kind of in Finn Hill. The Finn Hill Neighborhood Alliance, in cooperation with the city of Kirkland, is leading an effort to really build a loop, a network of loop trails, which will serve Bothell residents as well. And that's regional in nature, and so I'd like to have some dollars in there. But bottom line is I'm trying to bring some of these dollars, not a dollar for dollar return, but the argument we used on the Radar Navigator, that North End residents are paying into these programs. We frankly don't ask for a lot, but we do have community needs, and some reasonable return on the investment when we have those needs is a reasonable thing to ask for. And so that's my message on the parks levy, particularly on, say, pools. It's the cheapest pool money you're going to get. In other words, if you raise it locally, local residents pay $1 for every dollar they get. On the regional item, you get some support from folks outside of the area, right? The high assessed value parts in downtown Seattle, Bellevue, other areas. If you regionalize this deal, so they'll pay some of that money. So that's the notion there. We'll see if there's enough support for it, but it's something we're working on in cooperation with everybody.
Thanks again. We always appreciate you coming to visit us.
Anytime. Thanks for having me and making time. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Dembowski, if you could just wait for one moment.
Uh-oh, who's talking? Uh-oh.
So Councilmember Dembowski was very, very modest when he was talking about the North Sound Radar Navigator program, because he has been a leader in bringing this forward for the last 2 years, starting with some funds for Shoreline that expanded to Bothell and now to Lake Forest Park, Kenmore, and Kirkland. We would not be where we are today with our program coordinator, Caitlin Dowd, and Captain Mike Johnson, who is the captain in charge of the program. When we receive this funding, we will be really hitting the ground running as far as getting navigators to cover our cities in a way that is a lot more efficient, so that we're not each having our standalone systems, but we have something that allows for the coordination between the different North End cities that we have. So with that, the chiefs came together and wanted to do this presentation of the 5 city chiefs coins for you. So
Well, thank you so
with a
much.
beautiful rack made
Look at
by
that.
Sergeant Tempe. So
Hey,
thank you
thank you very much.
Really. It was,
All right, can we do a picture with your
sure, sure.
Maybe-
Okay.
Deputy Mayor, would you mind if we did a picture? Sorry, the politician, you got to do the picture.
All right, let's all head down.
Okay, sure.
Thank you very, very much. That's incredibly touching. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I came back up, but I'm headed back down. We have 3 proclamations. How do I know? Oh, it's on. Okay. Okay, our first proclamation is Earth Hour, and will be presented to Sabrina Combs. Whereas the City of Bothell is participating in Earth Hour to promote sustainability and reduce energy usage in Bothell, and whereas Earth Hour promotes turning off lights for 1 hour once a year at 8:30 p.m. around the world, and whereas the city will promote the event and information about the program on social media sites, and whereas the City of Bothell will turn off all lights at City Hall for 1 hour from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. on March 30th, 2019, now therefore I, Davina Dewar, Deputy Mayor of the City of Bothell, do hereby proclaim Saturday, March 30th, 2019 at 8:30 p.m. as Earth Hour in the City of Bothell. And during this time, I ask residents and organizations to take time to participate in community activities without power for 1 hour. Sabrina Combs, thank you.
Can I add one more?
Yes, go for it.
So I just wanted to add that we have been able to work with our facilities group as well as the safety manager, and we will be adding the Bothell Operations Center and fire department to some of the buildings that we'll be turning lights off at. So that's really great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, number 2, Women's History Month. Whereas American women have played and continue to play a critical economic, cultural, and social role in our nation by constituting a significant portion of the labor force, and whereas women have played a unique role throughout history by providing the majority of the volunteer labor force of the nation, and whereas American women of every race, class, and ethnic background served as early leaders in the forefront of every major progressive social change movement, not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, and the civil rights movement, which create a more fair and just society for all, and whereas American women have served and continue to serve our country courageously in the military, and whereas women have been leaders in Bothell's municipal government as far back as 1946, when Lynn Scholes became the first female council member, 1980, when Sue Walsh became the first female mayor, and in 1989, when Ann Flug became the first female city manager. And whereas despite these contributions, the role of American women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued, now, therefore, the City of Bothell City Council declares March as Women's History Month in the City of Bothell. And I'd like to present it to our chief. And hopefully people don't mind me indulging in a little history. For the past 8 years, the City of Bothell and the Bothell Police Department have been blessed to have Chief Carol Cummings providing the leadership to our women and men in blue. Chief Cummings was hired in February of 2011. She came to us after working as a division chief in King County Sheriff's Office. She oversaw the SWAT team, the helicopter unit, the bomb team, the dive team, and Marine unit. She was eventually selected to lead the Metro unit. Chief Cummings' first police job was in Oregon, and she was hired by the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. In 1983, when she started at King County, she was given a badge that read police officer. A short time after pinning the badge to her uniform, it delaminated and the label fell off, revealing the word patrolman. Chief Cummings also related that when she started in patrol, women deputies were not allowed to work in adjoining districts. It was such an unexpected sight to see female police officers that one day a resident stopped by the precinct to report they'd seen a police car in the neighborhood. When the duty sergeant inquired why the resident was reporting this, the person said they thought the patrol car might have been stolen because a woman was driving it. We've come a long way. Chief Cummings may be the first female police chief in Bothell, however, she stands tall with her female peers in King County. At the City of Bothell, Chief Cummings is making history on a daily basis.
So things have changed a lot because when I started, there were no women in positions of authority. And now you look around the King County, which is a leader in this nation for the number of female law enforcement executives. But it needs to be noted that the reason I'm standing here today is because of the male mentors that I had when I started. There were no female mentors. And so it was those men that lended me a hand and taught me this career and had faith in me and the other women, law enforcement leaders out there. That's the reason I'm here today. So thank you.
I'm not shaking anyone's hand because I have a sick daughter at home and I'm going to spare you all. So just an FYI. Our final proclamation is the support of 100% renewable energy, and I'll be presenting to Chris Connolly of Environment Washington. Whereas Washington communities are already feeling the impacts of climate change, i.e. today, whereas the city of Bothell is already taking action to reduce its carbon emissions and promote clean energy, including adopting LEED requirements for the new city facilities, constructing LEED certified Bothell Operations Center and City Hall buildings, and whereas the city of Bothell has a focus on greening its fleet, exploring opportunities for alternative fuels where practicable, and whereas the transition to 100% renewable energy should promote more employment opportunities and economic growth in our communities, now therefore be it resolved that we support efforts to bring Washington closer to 100% renewable energy and ensure that the benefits of renewable energy are realized by Washington residents from all walks of life. And be it further resolved that the City of Bothell's officials and staff will strive to consider municipal decisions in light of whether they will bring the city and its residents, businesses, and institutions closer to 100% renewable energy. And be it further resolved that the City of Bothell will take actions where possible to promote clean energy and reduce fossil fuel use. Chris Connolly, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dewar, as well as thanks to the whole council today. Events like Earth Hour are exactly what we need if we're going to be transitioning to a 100% clean energy economy. And that transition is not only necessary, but it is also possible. There are a suite of climate bills going through the state legislature right now, so I please urge everyone in the room today to please contact their state legislator and ask them to support 100% clean energy for Washington State. It's an opportunity to create a whole new economy based around green energy. Thank you again to Council, and I look forward to working with you on future issues such as this. Thanks.
And I just wanted to mention that will be forwarded to our legislators. Okay, next up is a staff briefing on the City of Bothell map by Daryn Brown, GIS Supervisor. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, council members. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Daryn Brown. I'm the GIS Supervisor here at the City of Bothell, and I work in the GIS Services section. This evening, I'm going to be giving a brief overview of CobMap. CobMap is an interactive mapping application that we built here in the city, and it was designed specifically with our community in mind. It accesses our GIS data, a lot of the layers and information that we maintain in-house. And the unique thing about it is that it's configurable to the device. So if you open it on a phone, a tablet, or a computer, it will automatically reconfigure and look a little bit different, but function the same depending upon what the device is. We developed it with a lot of city department input. We have a steering committee that was involved with its creation, and it was initially released in December of 2016. We estimate right now through the city's website we have about 500 to 600 visits or users that use it every month. This is a slide that just shows some of the cross sections of users that use the application, from our utility districts to realtors, developers. It might just be someone who's thinking of buying a property in the city. So I'm going to jump into the demonstration portion, but the first thing I'm going to do in the demonstration is show you how you can find it. It's easy as 1, 2, 3, and I'll walk through the application and give a brief overview of the layers, some of the information in it, how you can do a search, and a new thing that we turned on, which is a parcel report. Following the demonstration, I'll be open to any questions or comments that you might have. This is my contact information, and we also have a feedback email address that anyone can make suggestions or comments on this particular application. So with that, I'll jump into the wide world of web and We'll see what we got here. So to find Cobb Map, probably the two easiest ways you could do it is from our city's webpage, bothell.gov. You can type in, after that, Cobb Map. And it'll automatically redirect after that, and it will launch the application. Another way to do it, which is really easy, is if you happen to be on the city's website, over in the left-hand margin, you'll see a Maps tab. So you can click, this is always there on every page, you click Maps, Interactive Maps, and that will take you to our library of ones that we've created here at the city. Cobb Map, you'll see, is at the top. So we'll launch it and take a look at it. So as you can see, when the application first launches, you see an outline of the city in context with its surrounding areas. It's like a lot of applications you've probably seen online. You can scroll in, you can pan, you can navigate. The first thing I'll draw attention to is the Layers tab. So down in the lower left corner, you click Layers, and you'll see on the left panel these, we call them themes, or they're organizations of data that pop up. You can see planning, utilities, parks, and recreation. So we'll take a little look at utilities here. You click the little plus signs, the check boxes, and you see we have water, sewer, surface water, and garbage service. We'll kind of look into surface water a little bit here, and you can see that the information turns on and off depending upon where you are on the map. And if you're interested in certain things, you can turn them on. You can even go further, such in catch basins, and you click this expanded box, and even more detail pops up. We say we have approximately 280 different layers right now in the current application. Depending on the user, they can go in and find the information. So what most people do, though, is they come into the application, they want to find information on a specific piece of property. So in the upper right corner, there's a search bar. And usually it's a tax parcel number or an address. So we'll start with the address number. Type in one you're probably familiar with, 18415. And you'll see on the right-hand panel, the addresses with that number start populating. You can either pick one of those or keep typing. What we'll do here is we'll pick 101st Avenue. We'll do a search on it. And over here we get the results. We have one address that matches that exactly. Further information comes up. The map reconfigures and zooms to the property that we selected, which probably is similar where we are right now. The final thing I want to highlight is a parcel report. So this run parcel report you can find throughout the application in several places. But what I want to show you is, without even using the map, someone can go in from the home page here again. In the left-hand margin, you see Bothell parcel report. So I click that. Again, it's the same kind of interface. I can type in my address, 18415. Again, we'll pick that one, hit search. Now on the back end, this is running a tool. It's creating a report, and it's going through a lot of the layers that we have in the city that we found to be the most common questions people have about property. And what's returned is an Adobe PDF file. And this is something that you could print, you could share, you could save it, send it as an email attachment. And within here, you'll see there's hyperlinks, these blue. So for example, it doesn't matter if you're in King or Snohomish County, it'll send a hyperlink out so you can see the county's assessor's data on that particular piece of property. So that summarizes kind of a very brief demonstration and overview of the application, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions or comments that you have.
Thank you for the presentation. Any questions? Okay, I guess, Councilmember Olson.
I'll just say I think this is great to have. In my day job as an engineer, I use City of Seattle's, their DSO maps a lot, and I think it's just a great valuable resource. It cuts down on time that I have to go and interact with the city staff, and so it frees up the city staff. So I think this is a cost-saving measure for our city staff trying to provide information about our utilities or drainage or just any other information that's just easily accessible here now. So I think it's a great job, and it looks great just from your little presentation, so thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take some time and play with it. It seems like a really powerful map, so thank you for all your work in implementing it.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to city manager reports? No? Okay. Council committee reports. Councilmember McNeil.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just have a couple things to report on. The Regional Policy Committee and PIC this week. So the PIC, during the PIC meeting, we heard that the SCA, Sound Cities Association Board, held a retreat. I believe you were there, correct? So some of the things that they were discussing were affordable housing, transportation, equity, inclusion, and civility, and addressing the influence of toxic social media and public disclosure. So those were a couple of things that they were talking about at the board retreat. Another topic that came up is the parks levy that Councilmember Dembowski was talking about. I had sent out the PIC packet from this week to the council members. There's 2 action items on there. One of the action items is the Challenge Seattle that I believe we have already signed on to that. So that action item has already taken place. The other is the SCA PIC is looking for council members to come back to the PIC and discuss how their city's feeling about the parks levy that will be coming forward. Some of the information that's in that parks levy is what will become, I think Councilmember Dembowski said, available to North End cities, including Bothell. And there is in that packet, there's information that talks about the 16.82 cents levy that would take place, which would equate to approximately $84 per year. At $7 per month for a $500,000 house. So I think it's important we all take a close look at it. And if we could report back and see what our stance is, I will report back to pick on that. One of the key takeaways from that was that Councilmember Dembowski also spoke about was what was available to us in the past timeframes. And I do have that information that in the 2014 to 2019 pass-through funds, Bothell received $356,000. In this proposal pass-through funds, we are allotted $1.1 million. So again, good information in that packet. Hopefully everybody has an opportunity to read it. If not, please reach out and I can inform you on what I heard at the different meetings. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilmember McAuliffe.
Yeah, and I shared with Councilmember McNeil and yourself, Deputy Mayor Dewar, at the East Side Transportation Partnership meeting, correct? And so what we're really excited about is having Green Line come to Canyon Park. And that will start March 28th, I believe. So it'll be one of our really great transit systems that will come into Bothell and hopefully eventually downtown. But that's our good site right now at Canyon Park. So we all were there, and that was my first meeting, so I'm getting educated.
Great. The one thing I wanted to add to the PIC was the draft supplemental environmental impact statement for Vision 2050 was also discussed. And this is planning for population growth to 2050. And there are 3 alternatives that we held at the police community room last night. There was an open house about it. But if anyone's interested, it's a really long document, but the executive summary is worth reading and provides a lot of really good information. And you can get it by going to a PSRC and looking up draft and supplemental environmental impact statement. Not as boring as you might think, actually, so that's my plug. We did not have a Transportation Policy Board meeting this month, so I don't have any reports. Councilmember Olson, do you have anything?
I do.
Councilmember Olson.
So reporting on the Snohomish County Board of Health, the Snohomish County Health Officer, Dr. Beatty, gave us a presentation on vaccines and vaccinations, since that's kind of a hot topic in the state, especially in Southwest Washington. And he just gave some interesting information about Snohomish County Kindergarten, the vaccination rates for 2017 and 2018 for the MMR, the mumps, measles, and rubella vaccine. He reported that 90.2% had complete vaccinations by kindergarten, so there's still 9.8% of children without full vaccination. And so some of that is due to medical exemptions, personal exemptions, and religious exemptions. And then just about another 5% was children just not being vaccinated without any type of exemption. So there were some large numbers in there, and it led to a spirited discussion on the Board of Health on kind of what's going on in the state legislature on trying to close some of those exemptions. So we, as a board, did not come to a resolution or a kind of a consensus as a board yet, and so we tabled it for further discussion. But it's still ongoing in the state and ongoing in Snohomish County. So.
Thank you. I think the cost, too, I can't remember, something over $1 million or more of just sheer cost to have to deal with the outbreaks. Okay, moving on. Visitor comment. I'm not going to read what the mayor reads. I think everybody knows by now. You have 3 minutes. Be nice. Behave. Bill Moritz, you're first up.
Good evening, Council. I'm here tonight to talk about the disaster plan that is on your agenda, and I appreciate the Deputy Mayor getting her updates out and what's been going on. That caused me to go read that sucker today, 200 pages. The thing I was really interested in looking at was the potential utilization of ham radio operators. I took the CERT class from the fire department in 2017. That convinced me that communication is going to be a big problem in a disaster. I went and got a ham radio license. I'm now part of the Bothell emergency communications team. But I don't find much in the plan about that. There's reference to a cadre of ham operators, but I don't see much in the way of utilization. There's a reference to the ARES, which is the Amateur Radio Emergency Services opportunity. That's an organized group sponsored by a national ham radio group. I know that Kenmore has, the North Shore Fire has an active program. Kirkland has an active program. Woodinville, I've started to attend their meetings. So they have organized their ham radio group and made it kind of a real extension and identifiable part of the city's emergency response team. I don't find that in Bothell. I've actually had a little conversation with the deputy or the assistant city manager some months ago about it, but I have confessed I didn't follow up like I should have. But I really think that the city should try to take a hard look at that and make it part of the plan. And you know, the fire department has gone through a lot of trouble, especially Kirsten Clemens, the PIO. She's created 17 disaster areas in the city. Each one has a board on it. And in the drills that we've had, the ham radio operators could become a key part of disseminating information to the public and getting information back from the public to the central command in the event of a big disaster. So I think we have a real opportunity to utilize this volunteer resource, and I hope that we can make a little progress and make it a little more formal. That's my comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Sarah Glerum.
Good evening, Council and Deputy Mayor. As you know who I am. I'm Sarah Glerum. I live in Bothell. I've lived here for 9 years. Tonight I'm here with 2 hats on. The first one I will wear is my Library Advisory Board hat. And you probably know that my term just extends till the end of March. It was a 5-year term, and I want to say thank you for appointing me, because not only did I learn a lot about the library, which I really found fascinating, but I feel so connected to the city as just having that little tiny piece of importance of the city. I'm very comfortable as a city resident, as you may have guessed. I can speak my mind if I'm passionate about something or if I'm concerned about something, but I feel like I'm being heard. And so I thank you so much for that appointment, and I hope that the next person that you've appointed will benefit as much as and I can't see why she wouldn't. Okay, now my second hat, and that will be the last time you ever hear me talking about the library board, by the way, probably. I'm helping the North Shore YMCA raise funds for its annual campaign drive that it has once a year. The Y is a community asset that benefits our city in so many wonderful ways, and it stands for the values that we want for our city. It's inclusive, it's diverse, it's welcoming, and it serves people of all ages, from toddlers to people lots older than I am, and I am 79 years old. Our annual campaign raises funds to subsidize families and individuals to be able to participate in the programs that it offers without having to be concerned about being financially unable to do that participation. And there are other programs that we sponsor through this fund drive that pay completely for people to participate in, such as Livestrong for cancer survivors, pedaling for Parkinson's, preventing diabetes. Those programs are open to anyone in Bothell, anyone in the community. But our most exciting program that I want to tell you about is it's just in the second year, and it's serving North Shore grade schools. 6 of them are currently participating. Every 4th grader in those 6 schools is going to the water awareness. It's a safety awareness of water safety awareness program. Sorry, I'm not saying it right. They're learning in 4th grade by being bused to the Y. They have classroom instruction, then they're in the pool. And they are learning how to manage if a wave tips them over while they're in a boat, or if they fall off of a boat, or if they've never been swimming or in water before, if something happens and they trip and fall. I want to read you a thank you note from a 4th grader. Dear YMCA, on the first day with you, everything changed. At first I was scared, and then I got in, and it was the best. Thank you so, so much. So I'm going to just take a couple more seconds. Thank you very much. Please look at the North Shore website. You go to seattleymca.org, click region, find North Shore, click that, and you'll find a button that you click for a donation. It would be greatly appreciated, and the citizens of Bothell will thank you for it as well, as I do.
Thank you so much for your service and the regular updates you've been providing about the library. Okay, and next and finally, Greg Smith.
Thank you. My name is Greg Smith. I live in Bothell. I moved here from Ohio 5 years ago, and very pleasantly gratified to find all of your wonderful bicycling trails, your parks, your clean water, your clean air. And I just want to thank you for the 100% clean energy proclamation. This will help to preserve all of those wonderful assets that we have here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I think we're on to the consent agenda. I love a motion.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember McNeil, seconded by Councilmember McAuliffe. It's always the moment of truth. Okay. Yes.
It's not displaying, but I can tell you that it passed unanimously 5-0.
Okay, consent agenda is passed unanimously with Councilmember Zorns and Mayor Rheaume absent and excused. Moving on to AB 19046, funding agreement with Sound Transit for SR 522 Stage 3 improvements.
Thank you, Council Deputy Mayor. I actually have 5 items before you tonight, and I'm going to provide you a brief overview of each of them. They all relate to the SR 522 Stage 3 project, and so I'm going to give you an overview of the 522 Stage 3 project. I'll give you a short overview of each of the agenda items, and then I'm happy to take questions on any and all of those. So the 522 Stage 3 project is a widening and improvement project on 522 inside the city of Bothell and going into the city of Kenmore. It's from essentially Wayne Golf Course and the 96 intersection down to 83rd in Kenmore. We're going to be building bus rapid transit lanes to support sound transit, and they're also called business and access lanes, or BAT lanes. We're providing a sidewalk on the north side of the roadway, as well as other safety improvements such as lane widening to the standard lane widths, illumination, as well as access control along the corridor. Design in the right-of-way phase was completed by City of Bothell through City of Bothell funds and federal highway funds. The city completed both of those phases on our own, and we're planning for the construction phase to come when the Sound Transit Stage 3, Sound Transit 3 was voted and approved by the voters. So that's kind of an overview of the project. The first item for your consideration is the funding agreement with Sound Transit. This is, like I said, an agreement for Sound Transit to reimburse the city for all the costs for the construction phase of the project, including the construction, staff time, and consultant time to run the project and administer the project. You guys got a new funding agreement that was sent out last night. That funding agreement is substantially the same as what was initially presented to you. The legal counsel for Sound Transit made some last-minute changes which required some minor modifications there. But operationally, it's essentially equivalent from a budget standpoint, a schedule standpoint, and how we will administer the project. The second item on the agenda is the construction contract with Tomco Construction to build the improvements. We received 4 bids for the project. The lowest responsive bid was from Tomco Construction for about $21,184,000. The engineer's that was below the engineer's estimate of $22,900,000. The next item after that is with KBA Incorporated. That's a professional services contract to help supplement city staff to administer the contract. City staff will be running the construction phase of the project, but we need more staff to administer such a large project during this time. So we'll be using consultant staff to run the project. The next item is an interlocal agreement with the city of Kenmore. They have some improvements that we're building for them, and so they will be reimbursing us for some of those improvements as well as design costs. And then the last item is an ILA with North Shore Utility District. There's a North Shore Utility District water and sanitary sewer line within the project limits that needs to be relocated, and that interlocal is to reimburse us for design and construction costs for that relocation. That was a brief overview of all of it. I'm happy to take questions on any of the 5 items.
Any questions? Okay, I'll start. Maybe by the time I finish, they'll be warmed up. So regarding the reimbursement from Sound Transit, when does that happen? Is it just on a regular basis, or is it at the end of the project?
No, we'll be invoicing them on a monthly basis, and that's in the agreement with them, is that we shall invoice them on a regular period, and they'll invoice us or reimburse us for actual costs.
And do we know if these are all these contracts fall within the engineer's estimates for cost?
Correct, yes.
They do. Okay. I'm not sure if I had any other questions. I appreciated all the maps and information, and how can you remind me what the linear footage is that's in the city of Kenmore?
The city of Kenmore is probably about 400 to 500 feet.
Oh, that's all.
It's of the 4,000 feet of the linear footage of the whole project. So maybe about 10%.
Okay, and I'm assuming we're doing the work because they don't have staff to do it, or just for continuity and ease of finishing?
Well, the whole corridor has been being worked on by Kenmore's done some project, and City of Bothell's done other projects. This project's complementary of the other projects that we've done along the corridor, both Kenmore, Bothell, Lake Forest Park. Their most recent project, or the project that we're butting up to, didn't quite come all the way to their city limits. So we're matching into where those improvements stopped.
Oh, okay. And then can you explain what the lowest responsive bid means?
So the lowest responsive bid, so we're required by state law to take the lowest bidder. The bidder has to be responsive, they have to be licensed, they have to have had provided all the documentation that's required, such as bid bonds and certificates of non-collusion and other things of that nature. So we check not only the low bid, we check their math to make sure that all the math works out right, and if it does, we have to adjust their bid price at the end of the day. And then we do reference checks as well to make sure that they're bonded and licensed and responsible to do the work for the city.
Great. I just wanted to mention, I testified at the Sound Transit System Expansion Committee meeting, and I was really proud to be from Bothell because the staff had a lot of really complimentary things to say about the partnership and how well our staff has been, how great we've been to work with, and so I wanted to thank you for making me proud. Any other comments? Councilmember McAuliffe.
Thank you. So I think this is really a lot of work between all partners. And I just don't know if this is an appropriate question or not, but what I would ask is there a timeline here for completion?
Yeah, the project contract that we have with Tomco Construction stipulates they finish the majority, substantial completion of the contract within 18 months. So they will start construction sometime in April, we anticipate, and 18 months later, we expect to be finished. There's always changes and unanticipated things that we come across during construction, and sometimes that can stretch out. Weather delays are also on top of that, so that's, 18 months of working days. So, we anticipate there's maybe 5% days there for weather that they might get extended, and maybe another 5% for unforeseen things. But that's within the realm of appropriateness for a project of this size and scope.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilmember McNeil?
Thank you. Thank you for the information. So about 18 months, and 522, what will be the lane change each direction? We're going to go down one lane each way, or?
During construction?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so during construction, we've stipulated that during the peak hours, so in the morning commute and the evening commute, they can't close any lanes. So there's got to be 2 lanes open in each direction. And this is pretty consistent, or exactly consistent with the other projects we've done on 522, is no early morning lane closures, no evening lane closures. So during the middle of the day, they can close 1 lane in each direction, and at night. So we anticipate there will be some night work involved as well as day work. Now, the final cross-section of the roadway is quite wide. It's 2 general purpose lanes in each direction plus a bus lane in each direction. So essentially you're 6 lanes wide. So there's room there once they start widening to move traffic around to still provide those 4 lanes of traffic while they get a fair amount of work done.
Great. So should be some pretty good flow going through there.
I hope so. There'll still be a little bit of pain during the day, as we've seen when we close lanes during the day. There's a lot of traffic on the road.
Okay. And then you said this is 100% paid for by the Sound Transit?
That is correct.
Okay.
The
So,
construction phase.
okay. So that sounds like it's a pretty good deal for us.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. And then tax dollars and all that roll kind of back into the city, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so that's a good plus there as well. And have you, as far as staging equipment, things like that, have we kind of figured out what's that's going to look like, or?
The contract, there was nothing in the contract that the city provided. We didn't provide any staging opportunities. We provided the right-of-way and the project limits, and we said, you're going to have to figure out how to work that. There's many properties along the corridor that are undeveloped and could provide that, and generally the contractors It's their responsibility to go make those deals or make an agreement with a neighbor if they think they need additional space. And that's what they're in the process of doing right now, I expect.
Fabulous. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Olson.
Yeah, I just wanted to commend you on a great job with this project. I know that's been a very challenging technical project with the walls and just the different stakeholders in this project. So it's just exciting to see it coming to fruition, and Sound Transit being a great partner with here and coming through on their commitments to pay for the construction. So I think it's, exciting, and I'll love it when these bat lanes are open and riding on the BRT in 2024.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jason Laurie. I'm sorry I didn't introduce you at the beginning because I couldn't find your name, but nevertheless, thank you so much for your work. I'm ready to entertain a motion.
Move the recommended actions.
Can we do it all four at once, or do we need separate?
You could do all 5 at once as long as you're clear about what you're approving or moving.
Okay, so
do.
would you like to amend it to all 5?
I move that we approve all 5 recommended actions.
Okay. Second, motion made by Councilmember Agnew and seconded by Councilmember McNeil. I'm going to read all the recommended actions. First, authorize the city manager to enter into a funding agreement with Sound Transit in a similar form as presented for Sound Transit to reimburse the city for costs associated with construction of the SR 522 Stage 3 improvement project. 19047, authorize the city manager to enter into a construction contract with Tomco Construction, Inc. in the amount of $21,184,146.76 and in substantially the same form as that included with the bid documents for construction of SR 522 Stage 3 improvements. AB 19048, authorize the city manager to enter into a professional services agreement with KBA, Inc. for construction management services related to the SR 522 Stage 3 improvements project in the amount of $1,975,000 in substantially the same form as presented. 19049, authorize the city manager to enter into an interlocal agreement with the city of Kenmore relating to the SR 522 Stage 3 improvement projects in substantially the same form as presented. And AB 19050, authorize the city manager to enter into an interlocal agreement with North Shore Utility District for utility work associated with the SR 522 Stage 3 improvements in substantially the same form as presented. All right, ready to vote? Oh, I'm sorry. While we're doing that, Councilmember McNeil would like to speak to his motion.
Yeah, I will be obviously supporting this motion, but I wanted to thank the city staff on behalf of the community for all the hard work that we've put in along the 522 corridor. This corridor is important not only to us here locally in Bothell, but it's extremely important to the region, especially the North End cities. So for us to be a front lead runner in this, thank you very much for all your support and hard work on this. It means a lot to this region, and you should know that. So thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, I think Councilmember McNeil covered it, so please place your votes.
Passes unanimously 5-0. Councilmember Zorns and Mayor Rheaume absent and excused. Fabulous.
So before we go on to new business, I am not as seasoned in running meetings, and so I didn't ask if anyone else would like to speak. And we have one other speaker who wanted to speak during visitor comments, so I hope people will indulge me and let me make up for my mistake. Janelle Lowen, please. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. I was a bit late coming in and didn't get my paperwork in. Not familiar with the routine. My name is Janelle Lowen. I live in 10828 Northeast 183rd Court in Bothell. And I'm talking about the University of Washington Bothell parking garage that's proposed. Before, a couple years ago, they wanted to build a 600-bed dorm and that equals 600 residents. That UWB 600-bed dorm was rejected by the neighborhood and by Bothell. A 600-stall parking garage is now being proposed. 600 drivers and 600 cars. I'm not quite sure about that number, but I think it's 600 stalls. So I'm going with that number in my talk today. That also means that some of those will be carpools, so that could mean up to 1,400 people, more or less. But that's only at one time a day. A parking garage has continuous traffic. It has people and cars coming and going all day long. Even if it comes and empties 3 or 4 times a day, that's at least well over 2,400 cars and approximately 5,600 people coming and going in that parking garage. Cars are not bedrooms with stationary window lights. Cars have very bright, glaring lights that move and are very hard to cover up from the neighbors. Add to that vehicle noise with the inevitable booming sound systems, and this happens 3 or 4 or more times a day. Add to that vehicle exhaust and emissions. If a 600-person, 6-story dorm within 30 feet of our established neighborhood backyards was bagged because of anti-environmental, killing psychological and emotional effects, and financial ruin, how is it that an even more environmental, unethical, emotional, and psychological and financial monster than a 600-bed dorm is okay? And especially in our even more proved times of environmental crisis, proved by our own Seattle University of Washington scientists and professors, we are in dire environmental crisis and dire emotional angst. How then does the UWB think they, of all entities, can be exempt from these even more important environmental choices? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, new business, AB 19051, to ratify Mayor Rheaume's 2019 Salary Commission appointments. So I spoke with the mayor. I'm looking for his choices. He selected, I think, from 5, 3 people to serve on the Salary Commission, and his reasoning to me was that he went with the people who provided the most information about themselves. So Rosemary Sutton wrote, would you like me to read some of the information so you get a sense of who they are? Okay. So this is a letter from Rosemary Sutton. I retired in 2018 after working 35 years in public higher education in Ohio and Washington. For much of that time, I was a faculty member teaching future teachers educational psychology and research methods. For the final 10 years of my career, I was an administrator with personnel responsibilities for faculty as well as professional and unionized staff. These responsibilities included hiring, salary negotiation, supervision, annual evaluations, and performance improvement plans. I worked closely with HR and grew to understand the challenges of maintaining high enough salaries to recruit and retain talented employees into the public sector, but also being fiscally responsible with limited taxpayer dollars. I am not an officer, official, or employee of the city, or a relative of any officer, official, or employee of the city. Rosemary Sutton. So that's his first selection. His second selection was Tara Adams, who I won't, unless you want me to, I won't read her resume, but her letter says, please accept my resume as an expression of interest to serve on your salary commission. I have been a resident of the city of Bothell for 18 years and have 40 years of experience working with the municipalities in a staff and consulting capacity. I look forward to the possibility of becoming involved with the city of Bothell and speaking with you regarding this appointment. Please don't hesitate to call with questions or need for additional information. And just briefly, she was the assistant city manager and in Kirkland and a city in California. And then the final selection is Benjamin Mankey. He wrote, Mayor Rheaume, I'm writing to express my interest in the city's recruitment for the 2019 Salary Commission. I've been a resident of Bothell for nearly 20 years and currently serve on the city's Civil Service Commission. and Snohomish County's Ethics Commission. In a professional capacity, I work in employee relations at Amazon and have a deep background in human resources. Matters of employee compensation have been a consistent part of my work for the past 7 years, and I'm interested in lending my knowledge and experience to the city for the purposes of determining council compensation. Serving on city council is a rewarding yet challenging role, and while council members do not seek elected office for the pay, I do believe it is important to recognize the difficult work that they do by providing remuneration that is market competitive. Please consider this email as my letter of interest, and I have also attached my resume to highlight professional qualifications, public service, and other volunteer activities, and he currently is an HR investigator with Amazon. So does anybody have any questions?
Can I?
Yes.
Would
Oh,
you mind
sure.
if I made a quick clarification?
Not at all.
I just wanted the public and the, just to disclose that the entire council received that information. You may have spoken to the mayor about it, but we sent it out to the entire council.
Oh, right. Sorry.
No, it's just a minor clarification, but just important.
Yeah, no problem. Councilmember McAuliffe.
Done. Sorry, I voted. I appreciate your saying this, but also it was good for the public to also hear the recommendations. And
That wasn't, it was just for point of clarification that in fact the entire council received it ahead of time. So so reading it off was not that's perfectly fine. Just I wanted to be clear as who received it yesterday, the entire council.
Perfect. Thank you.
Right. We just hadn't received it. It wasn't in the packet because it hadn't closed by the time the packet went out. So anyway, I'm happy to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
So Councilmember McAuliffe motions to ratify the mayor's appointments to the 2019 Salary Commission, and seconded by Councilmember Agnew. Please place your votes. Does anyone want to speak to their motion? I always forget that part. Okay.
Passes unanimously with Councilmember Zorns and Mayor Rheaume absent and excused.
Okay. Moving on to AB 19052, adoption of a resolution approving the 2018 City of Bothell Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. And here to present is Jennifer Warmke.
Thank you. Paradise, Anchorage, and Thousand Oaks. What connects all these locations is that they suffered from disasters. Regardless of the cause, these unseemingly unrelated areas demonstrated that no place is exempt from a disaster, and people everywhere need to be prepared. The Comprehensive Emergency Plan before you tonight provides a policy-level framework to support emergency response activities. The basic plan, the emergency support functions, and annexes describe the roles, responsibilities, and functions which support the relationships of different departments, organizations, and agencies. The plan not only provides a framework for our local government, but it encourages whole community coordination and collaboration. In its basic form, the plan provides an overview of how to implement city-level management and details the responsibilities in relation to federal and state laws, rules, and regulations. It describes the functions and activities necessary to implement the phases of emergency management. It defines the activation of our Emergency Coordination Center. It outlines the strategy and integration in the use of government, private sector, and volunteer resources. And it includes emergency support functions, which encompass all emergency functions and tasks that will need to be performed during a disaster. Since its last revision in 2013, several changes have been integrated. These include reorganizing the plan to align with FEMA's comprehensive planning guidance and the new Washington Administrative Code. It also includes updating the roles and responsibilities in all the emergency support functions, and it integrates the organization and the direction and control annexes back into the main plan. It also adds language to address the whole community, non-discrimination, limited English proficiency, and access and functional needs individuals. The goal of Bothell's emergency preparedness program is to maintain a high level of preparedness in order to help protect the citizens of Bothell. The Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan is just one of many efforts that we do to help prepare the city. Thank you for having me tonight, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions? Councilmember McAuliffe.
I only want to say that Jennifer briefed me on this, and I'm very impressed with the work that you've done.
Thank you.
And we all know it's very timely. as of today and what the many things that have happened across the world. And we really appreciate your work. I know you've been with us for what, how many years?
12 years.
12. And as technology gets more advanced and more advanced, we look forward to seeing us move forward to protect our citizens. So thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. I had a couple things I wanted to say. According to the background information, we're required by Homeland Security to do this document in order to seek funding,
Correct.
but Homeland Security doesn't provide funding to do the document.
Homeland Security does not provide the funding to do the document. It is one of those unfunded mandates. But in order to get emergency performance grant funding and other grants that we would apply for, including any disaster relief funding, we have to have this plan.
So if you had to estimate how many hours it took to do this project, order of magnitude.
Oh, my goodness, that's a great question because the project not only involved me, but I had to reach out to every single department here, as well as outside organizations, including King County, Snohomish County, Puget Sound Energy, Snohomish County PUD. I would say planning efforts in hours, oh my goodness, well over 100.
Okay, I was just curious because I think a lot of people don't understand why we have so much staff and what they're all doing, and you know why there are taxes, I guess, to support these things. So I kind of read very low level the 200 pages, and it's really comprehensive, and it's hard to wrap my mind around, but I feel very secure in knowing that if something happens and we're all in a panic, there's a checklist for what to do if all else fails. So thank you very much for all your efforts, and I appreciated you taking the time to meet with me individually and kind of go through it.
Thank you.
That was great. Okay, motion, anyone?
I would so move.
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Councilmember McAuliffe to approve the proposed resolution adopting the 2018 City of Bothell Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan, and seconded by Councilmember Olson. Please place your votes.
Passes unanimously. Councilmember Zorns and Mayor Rheaume absent and excused.
We should have the mayor be absent more often because I feel like whenever I'm running the meeting, it goes by really quickly. AB 19053, 2017-2018, 8th quarter preliminary budget status report. And Maureen Scholes is the interim finance director to present. Thank you.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and City Council. We are here this evening to honor a commitment to Council to provide timely and accurate financial information and to support Council's goal of fiscal responsibility and stability. This is a preliminary report for the last quarter of the 2017-2018 biennium. Finance staff continue to finalize year-end numbers with final report to be completed in May, and no action is required of Council this evening. Here is a brief quarterly recap. Make sure I get on my right pages here. Each quarter of the biennium experienced an operating deficit in the general fund, much of which has been discussed in detail during the city manager's budget sessions last fall. The 7th quarter report for the period ending September 30th, 2018 ended with a $2.6 million general fund deficit. Staff took strategic actions in the 8th quarter to reduce the deficit, which included suspension of transfers from the general fund, a transfer of expenses paid by the general fund to the storm and surface water fund, and freezing recruitments for non-essential services. As of this report, the general fund deficit is currently estimated at $1.5 million. We anticipate this to be further reduced based upon some additional 2018 revenues that have yet to be received. Here's a snapshot of the major operating funds comparing expenditures and revenues. Expenditures are in the top row there, and revenues are on the bottom. As had been previously discussed in past reports, the Asset Replacement Fund is currently underfunded. In the biennium, purchases included scheduled replacements of equipment, vehicles, computers, and in December, purchase of 2 fire engines. These were all scheduled replacements for 2017 and 2018. And the current budget includes fully funding the Asset Replacement Fund for 2019. The utility funds, we have storm and surface water, sewer fund, and the water fund. They are right in line with their budget estimates. The expenditure figures will be changing slightly once we complete the capitalization and depreciation entries. The Capital Improvements Fund expenditures are exceeding revenues due to items such as the additional downtown cleanup was more than estimated. Department of Ecology grant was lower than anticipated. We repurchased the city center lot, and we purchased the 5 acres of the Wayne Golf Course back 9. The street fund is moving right along with the Safe Streets and Sidewalks levy programs, with revenues coming in to support the fund. And then we have the general fund. In the general fund, we show revenues more than the expenditures, but just a reminder that this does not include the dip into the unrestricted fund balance, which included the $8 million transfer from the capital fund. And these monies were used to and served to balance unbudgeted expenses and speculative revenues, which we encountered at the beginning of 2017. Here we have the general fund major revenues. Major development revenues are coming in at 24% higher than anticipated. Utility taxes are below projections by about 20%. This is due mainly to refunds from overpayments. Sales tax revenues just slightly above projections at 2%. However, in December, sales tax for December was $300,000 lower than December of 2017. That goes right in line with what the economists were saying, anticipating was going to happen in December. We will see what happens here when we receive the January sales tax revenues. We have a 2-month lag, so we'll be receiving those at the end of this month. It'll be interesting to see where January sales tax comes out at. And finally, probably one of the easier ones to project is the property sales tax, as we know the assessed values and levy rates from the county, so those are right in line with our budgeted figures. General fund expenditures in the categories of maintenance and operations, slightly over budget by about 5%. This is mainly due to the City Hall facility utility costs. We now know what more of a pattern of where they're at with this building. And then the personnel salaries and benefits are 1.4% over budget, due mainly to union contract settlements with retroactive pays that were covered over a year in retroactives. General fund estimated reserves for this period. Our current estimated general fund reserves is at $10.6 million. This includes $2.7 million in dedicated funds and unrestricted funds of $7.9 million. The $7.9 million is approximately 15.6% of expenditures. GFOA's best practices recommends unrestricted fund balance be no less than 2 months of general fund operating expenditures, and we are just slightly below that target by about $500,000. And just looking ahead, I wanted to give you a few things that we are working on. The Finance Department is developing a new format for the quarterly reports in an effort to provide enhanced reporting and transparency in an easier to read format. The final 8th quarter report will be returned to council once we complete the final entries and the financials, which will be sometime in May. An update to the city's financial policies are in the works and will be brought to council later this year for approval. And finally, in this year's budget, there is an appropriation for a utility tax audit, and we will be moving forward in the next few months to begin that process. that concludes the preliminary report, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Okay, I'll go first. Maybe you'll have some after me. First of all, I wanted to thank you, all of you, for your efforts in reducing the $2.6 million deficit to 1.5 in the last quarter of an 8-quarter biennium. So not a lot of time to adjust, but heroic efforts. Really, really appreciate you putting the effort into that. I'm curious. I know that it's basically a guess when you go to make the budget as far as what our revenues are. And I'm wondering, and in your opinion, what's the successful guess? Is it a certain percentage of coming within a certain percentage of what the actual number ends up being? And which revenues are the hardest to predict?
That's a good question. We do look at trends over the years and future projections. We watch what the local economists are saying, national economists. We always are looking in the finance department at those percentages. How close are we coming to our estimates? And that's why we bring before you, normally at the end of the year, budget amendments, if we see things that are trending differently than we had anticipated. Sales tax tends to be one of the ones that you really watch, and development fees and what's happening with local economy. I would tend to think in the general fund that's, while we still tend to budget conservatively, it can also be some surprises as to what people are doing with their purchasing powers.
So when you say budgeting conservatively, what does that mean?
We say conservatively because we don't want to speculate on the revenues and overestimate that we're going to receive revenues if we're watching the trends in past history and future predictions in the economy. We don't want to overstate and think we have more revenue that's going to be coming in when it ends up that we don't. Does that make sense?
It does. I just kind of wondered if I mean, it's not like a household where we know what our salaries are going to be, right?
Right.
Unless someone's fired or demoted, we pretty much know what our budget is. And I just am trying to wrap my mind around how the city, it's such a moving target over those 2 years. And so I was just kind of curious, what goes into that? Like, do you look at the likely outcome and then like downgrade it by a percentage just to be safe? Or I didn't know how that worked.
We have a magic ball. But we do have a budget analyst that is constantly looking at these figures.
Yeah. No, it's good to know. And then I just wanted to ask, the downtown cleanup. So when you had that bar graph up there and you talked about the downtown cleanup. So can you remind me what the change has been to that in the biennium as far as what we've had to put out? Or I'm sorry, I probably should have asked you these questions in advance, but they just occurred to me. Because I know we didn't anticipate the ongoing cleanup for it to go on as long as it has.
Right, and we had budgeted, I'm looking at some figures I have. In the downtown cleanup during this biennium, we spent almost $3 million more than we had estimated, or that we had budgeted at that time. And Public Works could probably speak more to the details on that, but.
Do you want to go at it?
On the fly. So the Bothell Service Center is one of the items that came on in the last 2 years, and the electrical resistance heating that we've done is fairly expensive. The interim finance director mentioned the grants from ecology not coming in as anticipated. We do have $1.7 million coming in for the Bothell Service Center in grant funding, but it didn't come in 2018. I think it's just coming in now. So that will help shore up some of that expenditure. But the bulk of our funding this last year in particular has been on Bothell Service Center.
So if the 1.7 million had come in December, our budget would be balanced?
I have to look to the finance director for that one.
That is in the capital fund, so it would not have helped
Oh,
as
okay.
much with the general fund.
Oh, okay. So that's where I get confused, is all the different pots that can't intermingle. And then I guess I just wanted to thank you. I know it's been a rough few months, but I feel like we all up here have a better understanding of the budget and where we're headed and what we need to do. And it's because of the transparency of the team. And so I just wanted to thank you all for your hard work.
Thank you. And as we move forward with a new design and look to our quarterly reports, we definitely would like feedback from you too. Hopefully we wanted to make it more clear, understandable, easy for anyone to read. So we value your comments.
I love graphs, so you throw graphs at me and I just eat them up, so
Okay.
thanks. Okay, I guess we have one last item, which is council conversations. Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's right. I just want to make a comment, and I really appreciate your work. I know that you've come in and really put your feet to the ground and made it happen. I just want to you mentioned something, and I'd like to kind of just highlight it, in that supporting our local economy and our businesses bring us in more sales tax, which really makes a difference for this budget. Is that
Yes,
correct?
we like the sales tax, yes, from our businesses, yes.
So I just want to know that we have an economic development director now, and as we help business grow and prosper, this will make a difference for our budget as well.
Yes.
So it's kind of a dual process that we're working together.
Sounds good, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Moving on to the final topic, council conversations. So this is only our second council conversation, and so we haven't really gotten the flow, but we did talk about sitting down around the table. Would you like to take a break so we can get tables and maybe be a little more, less formal? No. No? Not today. Okay. I think we talked about that during our retreat, so thank you for remembering to offer. I think they'd rather get out of here. So I'm just going to open it up. Does anyone have anything they want to talk about, topics they wanted to cover? Like perhaps, Rosemary, you'd like to talk about the Youth Council meeting today so everyone can.
Thank you. So I didn't know if that was kind of timely, but we did meet with 6 Bothell High School students, who was James Johnson, the ASB president, and his 5 other young people who came with him, from a Canyon Park student to other Bothell High School students. So we wanted to hear their voice. What do you, as our young people in the community, want to interact with the city? What do you want to have a voice, and what do you want to have a voice about? So we talked about goals, and we talked about their actually forming a youth council themselves, and possibly are being advisors to that. So that was kind of how we ended it up. So we tried to create a mission statement, and we'll be sharing that and developing it for them. And I think what was really impressive also was that their advisor came from Bothell High School, and the YMCA came as well. And we talked about how we're all trying to bring our youth forward because they are our future generation, as James McNeil said. And thank you for attending, as well as Council Deputy Mayor Davina Durer. So I think we've got a plan. I think we know how to move forward, and I'm very excited about our youth having a voice in what they want to see in their city. Basically, they'd like to see places to gather. So instead of always having wine walks and beer festivals, we need to think about what kind of a festival our young people would like to see here, because they want to come to town and celebrate. So we'll be working on different issues, and I think it's really exciting to have our young people involved.
One of the things that I got out of it was that they can help us with outreach to the community. We talked about, they were asking specifically about parks and master planning, and we talked about how our typical way of outreach is to have an open house, and it's not always as successful as we'd like it to be in terms of getting community feedback. And they were really excited in the role that they might play to bring young people to those type meetings and give input. So I thought that was really interesting. The other thing we talked about that was of interest to me was businesses that they're interested in and supporting and as places to gather. Apparently we need a boba tea shop desperately, and not just any boba tea shop. It has to be, do you remember the name? Pookie? I don't remember what it was. They go all the way to Linwood to this Pokey boba shop. Anyway, and then to add insult to injury, they said that the place to gather if you're a teenager is the Hangar in Kenmore, which was, to me, it's like a call to arms. We need a hangar in Bothell. But I was impressed by how articulate and well-spoken and passionate they all were. So that was really exciting. Did you want to say anything, Councilmember McNeil?
Yeah, that was probably in the last 7-8 years one of the most empowering meetings I've been in, and being around all the youth and listening to them and what their wants and needs are for themselves and for the future generations was mind-blowing. But my takeaway from that was they do have a voice. We just need to figure out a way to communicate with them. And, you know, they brought up just an amazing item, which was one of them, I believe, sat through our meeting with Sip and Stay. And what was amazing was listening to their takeaway from that meeting was that maybe we come up with something that works for the youth, because they're not drinking. They're more about just play and stay. When I say play, I play games, you know, sit around and network with one another. So I found that very interesting, how they look at the meetings that we're having from their perspective as youth. And that was mind-opening. That was pretty cool to be part of. So thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to seeing how far they're going to go and some of the remarkable things that they're going to do for us. So, yeah.
Well, and I think we brought up that as part of the ProSAP, we had talked about youth. I forget what we called it, but we had talked about skate park, looking at skate park, looking at basketball court, or those kinds of things, and they were very much interested in participating and giving their feedback on what they think we need, and they did say skate park. So we have people that will show up if we have conversations about youth opportunities in the parks. And then I just wanted to bring up, I wanted to thank Councilmember Agnew for going down to Olympia last Thursday. There's a bill now to authorize and bond the tolls. And on the state, I just talked to the lobbyist today, Tori and I, and so there will be an effort, I think, to put a letter together. They think now's the time. There's some traction being gained, and they think that there's a real possibility it could pass, and so we're trying to put a letter together from along the corridor to support that effort, because boy, it would really help planning for 405 BRT if we could get that project funded and on its way. So I just wanted to let you all know that that's in the works right now. Does anyone else have anything else they want to talk about? I feel like I think of things during the week and then I get here and I forget. Councilmember McCullough.
But I do want to comment that our young people were most interested in our parks, in the environment, in a place to gather. Really and truly, the skateboard park was not a #1 issue. So I just want to not highlight that greatly, because I think they want trails and they want something to do around our waterways. And when I said, how about around the slough, they didn't even know what that was.
They didn't know that slough was the same as river. But they did bring up the skate park.
They did bring it up.
I'm not sure to what degree, but they were somewhat
But
interested
I just
in
think
that.
they want a voice.
Yeah, they just want a place to hang out and get together.
And be heard.
Yeah.
Can I go? Yeah. All right. So just to tag on a little bit onto the end of that, another interesting takeaway was they go to Kirkland. They don't stay in Bothell. So they find Kenmore, Hangar. So working together to find places for them to stay here. So I had a couple things. First, I want to say thank you on a personal note to the city for allowing and finding structure and ways to get more kids on fields. Because one of the programs that I'm involved with in lacrosse, we were struggling to find fields this year. And our director, Parks Director, was able to find ways to get those kids on fields. And the kids that they're putting on fields are actually kindergartners through second grade. So that's an important message that just by working together, having a voice, reaching out, talking to one another, we were able to get those kids on the fields. And I look forward to finding ways and programs to get additional kids on fields in the future. I've said it many, many times, fields, active space for kids getting out, being healthy is important to me. I've heard from other council members it's important to them, but I think as a city, as a region, healthy youth is a good thing. And what we're doing moving forward, I think, is very positive, and I look forward to continuing that endeavor and working to find partnerships, however those partnerships come about. Finding ways, we talk about deficits and trying to come up with funding for our fields in the future. Just finding ways to work together with the county, whoever it might be, to find money to bring them into our community to help pay for those fields. Parks is also something near and dear to me. I've talked to the city manager about something that I think would be cool in the future, maybe the next holiday season, that I wanted to just bring up to everybody, and that is some type of thing on Wayne Golf Course, where we have our own enchant. I don't know how that, we put that together. Maybe it's through a volunteer thing, but I just wanted to throw that out, that it's something I thought was kind of cool, where we have a competition between different nonprofit groups or different businesses or whatever it might be, and however that works or doesn't work, but just thinking about things like that that can bring the community out and raise awareness around our parks and in the environment, things that we're trying to do. We heard Councilmember Dembowski talk about pools, opportunities for pools. I hear from folks throughout the community on a regular basis that their kids have to go, they're part of the North Shore School District, have to go outside of our area, the North Shore area, to find pools to swim in. So it is a huge issue. We are not going to solve that issue alone. We're going to need partners in that issue. And how we bring that to fruition, I hope we can find a way, because I grew up swimming at Juanita High School pool. I was very fortunate to learn how to swim very young. We heard about the YMCA program that's going on. So I'm hoping that we give our swimmers an opportunity to have those pools within our own school district. Lastly, we had a brief conversation around the hard work that the city manager did to help us on the NPRSA, the senior center that's so near and dear important to us. I think it's important that we continue to have the conversation around that facility. You heard tonight, I brought that up to Councilmember Dembowski. I want their support on this facility, as well as Snohomish County support on this facility. I think it's something that we need to continue talking about and making sure that it doesn't go onto the back burner, and that we're getting the support from our electeds at the county level. So those are some of the things that I've been working on.
Let the rest of council know if there's anything that we can do to help support that effort. Not being on the committee, I wasn't aware until that last meeting, but it's obviously, being the second largest senior center in the country, that's a big responsibility. So we need to make sure we're supporting as best we can.
And thank you for bringing that up, Deputy Mayor. It was walking in as the first-time chair to that committee and walking into that, my hat's off to the city manager for stepping up and helping us, because again, I didn't know what I didn't know, but I knew I needed help, and it was there, and it was good that we have the support that we have. So thank you.
That made me bring something up that's really important, and I want to thank the city of Bothell and our city manager for keeping our senior citizens safe. And we now have the yellow safety flags right there, right at the corner of the senior center, so they can cross very safely with their flags. And thank you very much for making that happen. It's really fun to drive over the bridge and see all those yellow flags that are keeping our seniors safe.
I'll pass that compliment right down to Public Works.
Much appreciated.
You're awfully quiet over there.
Yeah.
Do you want to bring anything up?
I just, Councilmember McNeil was speaking about the swimming pools, and it just made me think back to my youth growing up in Linwood, and we had the Linwood swimming pool there. And it's about the same size, but I've heard it's gotten a lot better. I've heard it's pretty snazzy with the lazy river ride and everything. But it was a great asset to Linwood and my community growing up, and all our friends just going down there, and that was a hangout place for us. And a lot of, because they had other courts. They had volleyball courts and other activities. It was a community center there, so it was near and dear to my heart. And just hearing you speak about it just harkened me back to those days. And hearing Councilmember Dembowski talk about regional swimming pools, I think that would be a great asset to us. And I think it's just a topic that consistently comes up. And I think, they're expensive and everything, but they sure are fun and they pay off. And covered ones in this area, because, half the year you can't do anything outside. So I think they're be a great expensive asset. But I also have good friends of mine that keep bringing up splash parks, and I keep going, wow, those are really expensive too. So it just seems to keep circulating around water sports and activities and gathering locations. So I think that's kind of the message that's really resonating, is just some public space, gathering space, and bringing the community together, activating it.
Yeah, I'm sure Councilmember McNeil can share that we end up going to a lot of birthday parties that aren't in Bothell because we have to go to Linwood and Snohomish for the water park. Yeah, it would be so nice not to have to drive.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else that anyone wants to talk about? Oh my God, I feel like I just feel like it needs to end after 8. It seems wrong. It's still the 7 o'clock hour. Okay, I guess I can entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will say thank you for a fabulous meeting, Deputy Mayor, and I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion made by Councilmember McNeil to adjourn and seconded by Councilmember Olson. Please place your votes.
Passes unanimously 5-0.
Oh, Tom.
Fallen down on the job. We are adjourned.